Activate a voice, so we stepped up. Made it to another day, bless up. To the fam that's gone, rest up. We run a marathon, catch up. Activate a voice, so we stepped up. When you come where I'm from, every day a blessing. No stressing, most high get direction. Revolutionary mindset with aggression. Like a frat house, we do all the stepping. Ancestors within, we keep what you rapping. Experience was my best lesson. Now I'm rolling up from the ass, throw it up. Sub-zero cold enough, worth the black fist.
I'm gonna remember that shit like I'm writing it down. 2 tears in the bucket when I slide through the town. I ain't worried about nothing, but where my kids at? All the rain and the pain already did.
Yo, peace. We're back for another episode.
Back at you.
Episode number 39. We're in here. Peace.
Yes, y'all.
We've got a very, very special guest with us today. Our sister Brea Baker. She has the privilege of giving the growth by gifting us this, as you can see here. And we're going to talk a little bit about her book, Rooted, and just the impact that it's had here on us in this particular land that we call the United States of America.
Thank you so much for the support and love, and I'm so hyped to be on with y'all.
Indeed. So, first off, I want to say welcome to the show, sis. As we stated before, we have a segment that we get into is called Spit Those Bars, in which we share some revolutionary type lyrics, and we usually let the guests try to guess the artist and the song.
Okay.
So I'm gonna do it real quick, and good luck.
Okay, bet.
Everything you got. Let me stop singing this. Everything you got is what you took from me. Everything you got is what you took from me. Conditions on my block, just like being in slavery. Everywhere the white man go, he bring misery. All throughout history, you can look it up. Everything the ball has touched, they F it up.
Dead press. At first I was like, wait, do I know this? Okay, I got that one.
Nah, it's not. Yeah, that's off the Black and White soundtrack, man. But the reason why I want to share those lyrics was because there's a segment in your book that kind of speaks to those lyrics. I want to read this real quick.
Yeah.
Scientists in the United Kingdom have studied the impact that European arrival to the Americas had on our planet. And it is painfully clear that Earth mourned and suffered the loss viscerally. An estimated 56 million indigenous people were killed across the Americas, either by these new viruses or the violence committed by those who transported them. 90% of the population that tilled and nourished the land died, and the land did more than rewild. Stone pyramids and temples lay hidden under layers of vegetation. Trees and brush took over. Approximately 55.8 million hectares of land, about 1/3 of Russia's landmass, overtook itself and reforested. The last time Earth went through a period of cooling, in contrast to the global warming we're currently experiencing, was in the 16th and 17th centuries, when the decimation of indigenous populations led to a drastic drop in CO2 levels. It ultimately sent the planet deeper into the Little Ice Age, where northern harbors closed their ports and famines traveled from continent to continent. When those boats disappeared into the hazy horizon, the land and her stores were already forever changed.
I love that you connected those two parts, because for real, it's just like when you really think, we talk about colonizers all the time, but like legit, what it means to come to a continent that's not yours, kill everything, plants, animals, people, and then try and make it yours as if like, oh, we just come in to make it better. Like, no, the problem was you, right? Like, so I love that you made those connections, because there is a lot of loss and mourning that has happened because of what white people from Europe brought with them, germs and guns and violence.
Yo, and I think I want the audience to get an understanding and do the knowledge to who you are as an individual and some of your background. So can you share some of that?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so my name is Brea. I'm from Long Island, New York, but I now live in Georgia. My family is from North Carolina, and I'm a 6th generation Black landowner. So the first person in my family to buy land was my great-great-great-grandfather, Louis Baker. He bought some land in North Carolina like 10 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. And so just to think of like what it meant for a Black man at the end of the 1800s to save up whatever little money he was getting from wherever, because you just started being able to be paid for your labor, and to buy something that his family is still benefiting from centuries later. To me, it was just like, that's such a legacy that I am so proud of and I'm so honored of. And the idea that he would buy something that he kept passing on and passing on and passing on, that my family still enjoys. And like, we have expanded that legacy in some ways. We've also lost a lot of land, had a lot of land taken from us and snatched from us, like a lot of Black families have, but we still have a good amount left. About 92 acres that we call Baker's Acres, and it's just so special to us. And we do cookouts, fish fries. We just had our Thanksgiving celebration there. My aunt was throwing down with the ribs. She grows peppers and makes hot sauce from it. Like, that's ours. And it's not necessarily anything that we have gotten rich off of. We still have to work for a living, but it's priceless land that just gives us somewhere where we can laugh and be free and not have to worry about someone telling us what we can and can't do, because it's ours.
Come on. My first question, we're gonna just go around, because I know the brothers got many questions as well.
I can't wait to hear what y'all thinking.
When we think about, land being taken away, what we mostly think about is gentrification, right? Like that classic scene in Boys in the Hood when Furious Styles said, he brought his son and his friend to the hood, and he was talking about gentrification, how property value is brought down, and the landowners move in and they buy for cheap, and us out, and then they raise the price and they profit. But your book gets into a whole lot of other ways that we're taking advantage of. Can you talk to some of the things that you who pick up the book may find out by reading it?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the strategies that is like very similar to gentrification is eminent domain. And I feel like a lot of us are used to hearing that word, because if you're from a city, eminent domain has been used to take Black land to build highways, to take Black land to build lakes. Lake Lanier here in Georgia is haunted land because it used to be a Black community, and they flooded it to build a lake that white people jet ski on still, and are surprised that someone in something is not happy with that, right? Like, I think there's a lot of that to be talked about. But yeah, so eminent domain is a big one. And basically eminent domain is the legal way the government can just come through and say, we taking this. They can take any piece of private land as long as they can say it's being used for public interest. But the thing is, they're always taking private Black land for public white interest. They're never taking white people's land to do something good for us. They're always taking our land to make something available to a community that's not us. Central Park is an example of a Black and Indigenous community that was taken through eminent domain, turned into a park that now you can get arrested for sleeping in, arrested for trying to do something without a permit in. Like, it's not a space where we can be our full selves. You're allowed to visit, but they take our stuff, our wealth, for the purpose of somebody else in some larger community. So eminent domain is a big one. One that I think people are not as familiar with is heirs property laws. And that's kind of a way that the legal system gets used to threaten Black people, which is when we pass on land after someone has died. After grandma dies, she passes on her land. If it's not in a trust,
come on,
to all of her heirs. And because we are not always familiar with the legal protections that we need to put our land in, they use that against us. They use that to manipulate us. And so what happens, long story short, is like, for example, in my family, you have my great grandfather who has some land. And yes, okay, that's my family tree right there. So my great grandfather has 17 kids, including my grandfather, Alfred. So my grandfather had 16 siblings. They're each equal heirs of the land. My grandfather had 6 kids. Each of his siblings had a bunch of kids. So now there's hundreds more heirs because all their kids are heirs. And now you can't do anything with the land unless everybody agrees on it together. The only thing you can do is sell it. But if you want to build on it, if you want to put a business on it, you have to get everybody's signature on it, which makes it really difficult because, of course, they're banking on Black families not being in alignment, not being in communication with one another. And then all it takes is one family member to say, I'm gonna just sell my part. And they sell it to an outsider, to a developer, and it threatens everybody else's share. And so that happens a lot in Black families as well. And then one of the last things that I'll say is, like, of course, outright white violence, like Tulsa massacre. People know about what happened in Tulsa, and that's like something that we just had the 100-year anniversary of that in 2021. But there are so many other massacres and riots where they burned Black towns to the ground, for no reason, just because of, to be honest, jealousy. I don't want to see a black person doing better than me, especially when I know that your ancestors used to be enslaved. And so it gets this excuse. So what we know happened in Tulsa has also happened in Atlanta. There was an Atlanta massacre in 1996. There was
Wilmington.
Wilmington, and I talk
Yep,
a lot
what you mentioned in
about
the book.
yeah, talk a lot about Wilmington because it's like only a couple hours from where my family's land is. And the Wilmington massacre was the first one that was successful. That happened in 1898. And when they were so successful, they burned all of these black properties down, burned black businesses. There was a black owned newspaper. They tore that down. They told black churches, we're going to let you live, but only because you're not allowed to preach about anything revolutionary, anything radical. We're going to mute your voice. And what they did in Wilmington, they then took that blueprint and went everywhere else and did it. The Red Summer of 1919 was a year when it was just massacres all over the nation. So there's a lot of us who come from that legacy where we were literally ran out of town or killed because we decided to stay. So all of that is used to take our land and take our wealth.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's powerful. And you know, I think another one that I specifically looked up here was this thing called the Reclamation Act of 1902 that took place here on the land to be able to seize the waterways. And the reason I mention that is because, you know, I have a long legacy as well that's connected and tied directly to the land. I learned after moving to Arizona back in 2019, later on, that I have a piece of ancestry that's connected directly to the land that I can literally look out of my balcony and see right now.
Wow,
But one of the things that I want to talk about in your book is that you talk about your father taking you on this journey, and you guys would take that journey oftentimes. And I remember, you know, just being the grandson of sharecroppers, and I remember, you know, being beside my grandfather as he tilled the gardens. He had 3 gardens that were there on this little small plot of land, which, by the way, I'm still fighting for right now as we speak. But
we're gonna talk about that after.
Okay, all right, good. And so I just remember watching him, you know, get out there and till and work and produce, and the land just produce a crop that was able to feed the community. And I noticed that in your book, Rooted, I just put it up, the family tree. Talk about the significance of you including that family tree, trust, and how that helps preserve the legacy that we talk about.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we have so many similar stories and connections there, because for me, the reason I included the family tree is because land is connected to family for us. It's not just this commodity that you put a dollar amount on. A lot of the land is priceless because our ancestors walked it. Like when I think of the fact that literally my great grandfather, my great great grandfathers, my grandmothers, like all of these elders and ancestors of mine also were growing something on this same land that I have, that I got married on, that my son gets to walk on. Like that is such a beautiful thing for me. But it also helps you to see like what was happening in that time for Black people, what was making it harder or easier for us to get some land, which were the hardest decades for our family to own land. So it just felt like I can't tell this story without including family. And also because a lot of the ways that I found out our relationship to land was through this oral history that I was getting from my family. Like my grandfather, when we were little, anytime we go down south, it was like, no, y'all gonna come and sit around and I'm gonna tell this story about the land. At the family reunions, you have an elder who's like, y'all need to know your history, y'all need to know where you're from. And that is like, we're becoming removed from that. Technology is making it easier for us to be separated and removed from that. But sometimes you just got to sit up under your elders and hear them tell their stories. And yes, they're going to ramble a little bit. I mean, I'll ask my Uncle Bruce, hey, Uncle Bruce, when did we buy this land? And it turns into 2 hours of something I did not know. But like, I need to hear that though, right?
Absolutely.
Like, it's not on me to cherry pick and say, I don't want to hear that from you. Like, I got to hear whatever he's willing to share with me. So it felt like I can't write this book and have people think, oh, Brea just did this on her own. Like, no, I come from generations of Black people who just knew, like, by any means necessary, we're going to have a little piece of land for ourselves. That land was how we, not only where we lived, it was where we worked. It was how we fed ourselves. It was the water we drank. It was where we fished, where we hunted. And they love to pretend like Black equals urban and that we only live in cities. But a lot of us come from this kind of background, and we got to talk about that too.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And one of the things that I made it a purpose to do when I was older enough to know. Like you mentioned, I would sit around my grandfather and just hear those stories, and my grandparents, and they would talk about picking cotton, and they would talk about all these things that I'm like, okay, wow, that's kind of, it's different from how I grew up. But I appreciated that as an adult. And one of the things that I made an intention to do with my children was to take them by and show them that plot of land, to let them see, hey, look, this is where your father was born and raised. And while we didn't have very much from a financial standpoint, guess what? We had enough to feed the entire community when those harvests would come through. I remember picking the peas and shelling those purple hull peas, and my fingers turning purple, and you know what I mean? And so I made it an intention to make sure that my children also understood that this is our legacy, this is what we come from, and that we, at any point in time, we can return to that we can go and get it out of the mud again.
I love that you're intentional about that with your kids, because that is a thing we're removed from. I remember seeing on Twitter that, I mean, I feel like this debate happens like every year, every other year. And someone was saying, like, would you pick cotton for $100 an hour? And everybody was in the comments like, I would never do that. And I'm like, $100 an hour is good. What are y'all talking about? Like, not every form of agriculture is slavery. But
Absolutely.
Because we sometimes think of anything that involves picking a plant, growing a plant reminds me too much of slavery, we don't want nothing to do with it. And now we got chicken recalls, egg recalls, the food is bad, the food is nasty, and we don't remember how to grow our own food. But that's what our ancestors taught their ancestors how to do it. So how can we be so removed from it while they're still getting rich off of it? And just remembering that, like, growing plants and being a part of agriculture was never the problem. It was not being paid for it and the conditions that we had to do it under, that was the problem. But even when we was on the African continent, we were always growers and planters and hunters and people who knew what to do in nature. And we got to get back to it, because there's so many revolutionaries. Malcolm X used to talk about this. The Black Panther Party leaders used to talk about this, who will say, if they control how you eat and what you eat, they control you. If you have to wait for somebody else to put some food in the grocery store before you can eat, you're not as free as you think you are. And it's okay to opt into that every now and then. But if you cannot eat, which I think a lot of people saw during COVID-19 when it first began, like, oh, shoot, the grocery stores is empty. What am I going to do? That we're very dependent on people that we already acknowledge want to poison us. So we have to learn how to be more autonomous, whether it's you going to grow the food or you're going to pay the Black farmer who's growing the food, but cut out the middleman, which is the white corporation, and get straight back to the land.
Right. Yeah, I just need to jump in real quick on that, because you're talking about the stigma that comes with, being tied to agriculture, and primarily like the South, right? Like one time my aunt came out here from Mississippi. My mom was a sharecropper, so I'm assuming the rest of her sisters and brothers were too. And we're passing by a cotton field, and she's on some Red Fox stuff on his old show. Oh Lord, I have flashbacks. You know what I'm saying? But up to the hate of like the South, like because my family grew up that way, right? And none of that. We were talking about this on a previous episode, and I was talking about how I kind of felt accountability is always number one, right? But I kind of felt like, why didn't they teach me any of this? And I feel like society says go to school, get a degree, and it's like they shun what's most valuable, and yet they don't pass on that value. Can you say some of that?
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to capitalism. This country made the most money off of us when they didn't have to pay us. So the moment that we're free and saying, hey, you want me to be out there picking that cotton? I'll do it. You got to pay me. And I'm going to make sure that you pay me a fair wage too. All of a sudden, they're like, wait a second, let's figure out how to do this without them. Let me get a tractor. Let me get a this. Let me get a that. Let me get a machine that can do the job of these people, because I don't want to pay those people. I want to be able to hoard my money. And so for them to replace our jobs and have us not be up in arms about it and unionizing and fighting for our jobs, they had to make us hate it too. And it's so much internalized hatred that they taught us, especially during the Great Migration, which I think a lot of us are like children or grandchildren of the Great Migration, where I'll speak for my grandfather. So my grandfather grew up on that farm. When he was like 17 was when he moved up north to New Jersey. And when you move up north or move out west, it's like people are telling you, oh, you're backwards. Oh, you come from down south. Oh, you so country. You so this. Oh, you still eat chitlins. Ew, that's nasty. You're not supposed to eat that. We eat this up here. We go to the grocery store up here. You're not supposed to grow your own food, wear overalls. And so they make you hate what it is to be from the South. And then the next generation over, your kids don't know nothing about what it was like to be from the South. And I remember that was my experience growing up. I was like, I don't want to bait my own hook. I don't want to be touching the worms. I don't want to have my fingers in dirt. I don't want any of that. And it took a lot of reclaiming to be like, no, actually, that's a beautiful thing to put a seed into the ground and be able to feed your family with what you created. But if they can make you hate it and find a different way to profit off of it, then they don't even got to fight you too much. And we don't even, so that's where it comes from. I really feel like is that it became like this social, you became like a social pariah if you were too Southern and too country, and you wanted to be from Harlem, you wanted to be from Chicago, from Detroit, from Oakland. You didn't want to be from Mississippi, low country, Gullah Geechee, whatever the case may be. And now we're realizing while we was fleeing the South, they turning those same spots into golf courses and resorts, and they loving it. They got ranches, they in Wyoming with it, they horseback, all of that, but making us think that it was a bad thing. So it's definitely like this like Jedi mind trick they try to do, which is, hey, we're gonna try and make money off of this a different way, and let's just have them be up in New York in a ghetto, buying their food from a bodega, and thinking that that's better than what they had down south. Like my grandfather left North Carolina, where his father owned a 600-acre farm, to be living in apartments with lead paint in New Jersey, and they convinced you that was better, that being up north was better. And yeah, I didn't want the violence of the South, but that doesn't mean I want to be cooped up in this small apartment, this small house, not able to eat something that I know is fresh and drink water that I know is good for me. And even when I think about that, like my grandfather was one of the youngest of his 17 siblings, and he died sooner than some of his older siblings. Like his older siblings was in their 90s still. Hey, baby, you want me to put some firewood in the fire? Like, Uncle Ed, it's okay. You can sit down. But he was still healthy and at it. And there was something about like the trade-offs of going up north and being convinced that it was cooler to be from up north, where you were being killed slowly through the food you're eating and the sort of lifestyle that they pushed on you.
And you're speaking to a lot of things in the book, and how like land can be healing, and how we're connected to the land, and being removed from that we become ill, right? Because I think about how like a lot of my elders from the South, yeah, they live longer than a lot of other folk, and they're being told about chitlins, pork, and all this. So I'm like, yeah. I'm doing the knowledge, and I'm like, dang,
yeah, literally.
I think it's that connection to the land.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because you think about it, you in these places where, depending on where you work, especially, but like for a lot of our parents, grandparents, they left the South and immediately went to factory jobs. And that's like the toxins you breathing in, the like people who live in places like a Flint, you drinking water that is literally making you sick, and just all of this. But at the same time, they're telling you, oh, you're a barbarian for wanting to use natural remedies. Oh, that stuff doesn't work. And now it's called alternative medicine, and they rebrand it to you, right? Like it's crazy. Stuff that our grandparents used to do. Hey, you sick? This tea, take this. But
turpentine.
Now like it's just crazy that they make everything. I'm telling you, everything. And now we're trying to get back those recipes. Okay, I'm trying to get this flu going, but I don't want to take those pharmaceutical medicine. I want to do the thing that they would have done. But we too busy saying that's fake medicine. And now we want that because we're realizing that the other stuff was fake. So it's just, it all is definitely in conversation. Like they removed us from the land in a way that hurt us health-wise, hurt us money-wise, hurt us family-wise. And we're so disconnected. And the moment that we get back to it, everything clears up.
Spiritually as well, right?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah. Delon, I know you got something.
I mean, she just touched on so many different things, all of which are the reality of our situation. I think that to kind of piggyback off of the conversation, it's like they've always put us where they needed us in order to grow their society. So when you talk about the capitalistic ways in which this nation is rooted in, it makes sense that if we continue to, and we talked about this on the MLK call, if we continue to learn how to grow and how to be one with the land, then we're not valuable to them. So it makes sense for them to say, yeah, you know what, let's give you this thing called convenience. And you don't have to be out here enslaving. Hate it, as a matter of fact. Hate everything that has to do with agriculture. And I just think that It's imperative that people get out of this American mindset that they've brainwashed us to hold on to and say, hold on a second, maybe I need to figure out how to be more self-sufficient and to be able to create sustainability in my life. But I want to ask you about something, because you said it early on in the conversation about the inheritance laws, right, of land ownership. And so, being now that you are 6 generations removed from the very first of your ancestors to own this land, talk about some of the current challenges that you guys all face to maintain the land, to continue to utilize the land, and what have you done yourself and your family collectively to mitigate some of those challenges, to keeping the land and to being able to still be fruitful on the land?
Y'all, this is like my favorite interview for real. Like, y'all are asking the best questions, and I love that we get to talk about it in depth amongst Black people, you know, like, so within my family, so there's technically 2 plots of land that we have. The ancestral land that we have that has been passed down is in Warren County, North Carolina. That land is now heirs property land that, like, there's hundreds of heirs who technically have a right to that land. I will speak for myself. I get a text every other week about someone trying to buy that land. When I know I can't be the only one of the heirs getting that kind of message. And it makes me very scared, because I always respond, we're not selling. But all it takes is one person
Absolutely
to mess it up for everybody else. And my grandfather saw that coming. And so what he did when he was alive was he used his pension to buy new land. He bought land that is not far, like 20 minutes from that land that he had inherited. He bought new land, and he and my grandmother did put that land in a trust and did it differently so that that land cannot be sold by any one person. It takes, you know, we have leadership now. There is like a board for that trust. That is our family. And this past Thanksgiving was our first real holiday after my grandmother died. And we had a deep conversation literally after we ate. Said, y'all, we going outside by the fire. We have a little fire pit. We put the fire on. Everybody bring your little drink, bring whatever you got, and we're going to talk. And I started by telling the story of this land. It was like, this is what we're fighting for. And we can't fight amongst each other more than we want to fight them. I don't care how much you piss me off, how much that person pissed me off. If I got your number blocked, there is nothing I would do that would threaten this legacy that we come from. And we have to all be in lockstep with that. But unfortunately, they prey on us, and they are hoping that, especially because when we're transferring land, we're often doing it when we're in the midst of grief. So we're mourning somebody, people are sad, and you get a text that, I didn't want that land with them anyway because I hate that cousin and I hate that brother, or whatever the case may be. And so you do it to spite somebody who's alive, and you mess up the legacy of the person who passed it on to you. So there's a part of me that is very fearful of, like, at any point the other shoe could fall, and the land that we have been passed on to, we could find out that someone sold their part, because they will try and prey on the people who don't live on that land. They're trying to find someone who's living up north, who's in debt. Hey, I'll give you $5,000 for your share in this land, knowing that 1 acre would go for $10,000. But if we don't know it, then we're like, 5,000. I could do a lot with 5,000. And it sounds good, but you just squandered something that was worth way more. So I'm just really grateful that my grandparents had the foresight to say, listen, we're going to still hold on to what we have with the rest of the family, but we're going to start something new, get a fresh start.
Indeed.
Literally use his whole retirement fund, buying up more land and saying, I'm not going to let this be what that other land was. This will stay in the family forever. We will put a distinction on it cannot be sold unless every single person wants to do it. You can't have one person selling it to an outsider.
Yeah.
See, and if we are going to sell it, which we talk about never wanting to do, but if we do, I pray we only sell it to Black people. Like, truth be told, that's where I want to be at with it. So that's one of the protections we took, is putting this new land in a trust. Trying to have as many conversations. I'm on my family reunion committee, and I've talked about, like, all right, when we come together this summer, like, let's really tell this story so that the young ones coming up are not acting silly with the land. You know, they know what it is.
I think that's important.
Hold on really quick, Nakia, because I think this will be important for the viewership to know. Can you touch on a little bit about that process that he undertook to put the land in a trust, what that looks like, and why that's important?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. So the biggest thing that you're trying to avoid is turning your land into heirs property land, which means that, I mean, it sounds good in theory because heirs property land is like supposed to be communal, but the reality is it just gives each person the opportunity to sell off their part to someone else, versus a trust keeps all of the land together, and all decisions on the land have to be made in concert and in community. So that's number one. So as far as how they did it, one of the way you do it essentially is you have to deed the land to a specific individual and have that individual put in the legal protections. Because if you, yeah, like a trustee, exactly. And then you can create leadership for your board of trustees. Like, it doesn't have to be one person forever. It could be, you know, we got 2 co-chairs, a secretary, a treasurer, and whatever. And those are the voting members, but every family member is a part of this larger entity. And that protects it, because now you can't have every family member getting a text on the side like, I want to buy your land. Everything has to come through the trust. It's like an LLC. And it's like nothing moves without the LLC being aware of it. And so the land had to be deeded to one person, that trustee, to set up the legal framework for it. And I think this is where it comes in, is you have to have a legal professional you trust, because sometimes we try to do the right thing. Oh, I tried to set up a will.
They'll run over you.
A white lawyer who you don't know, who you can't trust, who is sneakily doing stuff that gets your land taken from you. But thankfully, there are more Black lawyers now. There are people who are working in this issue, and you find people who understand what you're trying to do, and do your research and make sure, like, hey, is this someone who works with private developers? I don't want that at all. I don't want any kind of conflict of interest. But that person, that trustee in our family, is the person who lives on that land, my aunt, and she's the perfect person for that. She's growing on that land. She got our farm number, and so we're reclaiming those farming roots through her. But yeah, our big thing was like, all right, we got to start having regular board meetings so that everybody is aware of what's happening. It's not just that the one trustee is the only landowner. It just means that they're kind of the point person for all of these questions and making sure the taxes get paid up right. And that's another thing. You behind in your taxes, even if you got the land paid off, they could take that from you. So you have to be on top of all this paperwork, on top of all of the financial expectations of the land, and having one person be that, having a trustee and having like an LLC that supports it is so much better than you leaving it to all your family members. And now you got people in all parts of the country who don't care about what's happening on the land, but are able to sell their part to an outsider.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece too, is that, and it's information that we didn't get. We didn't get information about trust and how to, properly navigate a trust or operate as a trustee or be the grantor and the beneficiary. We didn't understand those pieces, and I think that's an important piece. So specific to the land piece, we talk about this conversation of reparations, right?
Yeah.
And we also talk about this, specifically in the book, you talk about reclamation. So talk to us a little bit about, the importance of, when we talk about the conversation of reparations, land being tied into that.
Yeah, for sure. We got to remember that every revolutionary that we celebrate, every revolutionary that we admire was already talking about land. Malcolm X said you can't have a revolution without land, because a landless people, you have no autonomy, right? Stokely Carmichael talked about that. Freeing the land. The Black Panthers, that was the 10th point of the 10-point program, was we need land. We need something of our own. So just remembering that that's the legacy we come from. There has not been a generation of Black activists who has not been fighting for our right to land. And we have to be the generation that continues it. And when it comes to reparations, white people don't want us to hear this version of MLK, but him too. And that's the years, right in the 2 years before he was assassinated, he was like, we coming to DC to get that check. We're coming to get reparations. We are coming to build wealth, and and he was explicit. He's like, and it's not going to be on discount. It's going to cost this nation billions of dollars. And that's what y'all have to do. So we have to remember that legacy that we come from, because land is, again, it's going to be how we feed ourselves. It's going to be how we house ourselves, how we employ ourselves. And it's going to give us the actual freedom to say things with our chest. Like, it allows me to be a more outspoken activist. And people will say that, like, you're not worried about this, and this. My backup plan is in North Carolina. If anything happens to me, I know where I'm going. I have somewhere to lay my head. We can grow our own food and figure it out. And if this career doesn't work out as a career, I have a safety net, which is my family's land, which is something, again, that my great-great-great-grandfather had the foresight to do. So we have to have the foresight to leave something behind that our great-great-great-grandchildren will be able to benefit from. And the only thing that's not going nowhere is land. Crypto is having its moment, but who knows where that's going to be? Right. Like, there's a lot of things that have had their moments, but land is forever. Real estate and property and homes are forever. So that's a big one for me. And all the greats, even Nipsey, we was talking about rap lyrics earlier, but Nipsey talked about, I need some real nigga reparations. Like, that's really what it is at the end of the day. So I'm really big on that. But I say reclamation too, because the answer is not for us to get land and do what white people did with it, because that's not anything that ever served us. Trying to play white people's game never serves us, because it's only built for them to benefit from. So we have to be able to remember the answer is not get some land and put skyscrapers on it. Get some land and tear it all down. Like, no, get some land and leave some of it wooded so that you have somewhere to hunt. Get some land and put something in that dirt. Get some land and know what's under the dirt. Let you got minerals or rocks or whatever the case may be. Like actually think about how our ancestors did with that land. Like, some of the first Black schools were schools that Black landowners said, you put a school up here. I don't care if the federal government is not building a school. I will. And like, that's what autonomy does. But if we try to get land and try and do what they did, which is put a gate up, put a wall up, and say, this is just for me and mine, then it's also easier for you and yours to get picked off, because it's very easy to kill one Black family versus an enclave. And it's not to say that they don't try and come for us when we're in big numbers too, but we have successfully fought back against these sorts of efforts to take our land when we have the numbers. But when we try to act like, oh, I just want to get out the hood, I want to, like, no, we got to be in community with one another. We can't do what they do. That, like, what we come from, the maroon communities, right? Like that, they are always about collectivity. And that's not trying to be whites. That's trying to be us.
Yeah. Sis, you said like this is one of your favorite interviews. Is one of mine as well, because I was blown away when I seen you at MLK. And I hope that, like, you know, this interview, like you said in the book, like the book will hopefully radicalize folk instead of having despair. I hope this interview does the same. I feel if I was on the outside looking in, that it will do that for me. But why are Black landowners unicorns? 1862, what was it? The Homestead Act of 1862, ACS, and how they were exploiting those that built the country.
Yeah, 100%. Well, yeah, again, like, we were forced to work this land, and the moment we got free, now we're getting pushed off the land. And we owned more land 100 years ago than we do now. We own less than 1% of American farmland in the 21st century. So for all the progress we think we made, post-racial America, we think we made, the real money, the real asset that we had even 100 years ago, we don't have anymore. So when you meet a Black person and a Black family that does have land, they really are a unicorn, because they survived everything designed to take them out. Like, the USDA, eminent domain, white mobs, sundown towns, all of these things are set up to keep us off the land. So when you see us on land, like even the intro, like, I was getting chills, because I'm like, this is like my dream, is us on land, like being able to just pour one out and cheers and do what you want to do. Like, when you see Black people, whether it's doing a rodeo or a trail ride on some land, whether they hiking on land, swimming in some water, growing some food, like, we are unicorns in that way, because they don't want us to have that, you know, and like kind of use that DJ Khaled, like, they don't want us to do that, but God did, like, but legit, they do not want us to be able to have that. They want us to settle for these like cramped corners. So when we fight in, like, we're really unicorns in that way. And I'm just trying to see a herd of unicorns. I'm trying to make it so that it's not abnormal to see us thriving on land, especially because when I think of like what land did for my grandparents and great grandparents, like my great grandfather Frank had a 600-acre farm in the 1930s North Carolina. When you think of what else was happening in 1930s North Carolina, you think of the KKK, you think of segregation, you think of all kinds of negativity. But his world was, me and my kids got 600 acres. Me and my kid, we got a couple horses, we got some pigs, we got some cows. We're good. And to think that like they could build that kind of enclave, that kind of like bunker and shelter in the midst of all that craziness, we should have that right now too. Like this Trump administration, like we should have somewhere where we can go and get away from it all and it heal us, like you had said. So I'm really big on that. I'm just like, I just want to see more of us winning. I love to see Black families doing stuff on land, whether it's a vineyard, whether it's a ranch, whether it's whatever. I'm like, do what you want to do on it and know that that's your birthright. Like that's what our ancestors already fought for. So I'm big on Black people buying land, but I'm also like, it shouldn't require me taking any money out my pocket because this country owes all of us.
Exactly.
Like, period.
Yeah.
That part.
So I got a question for you. If I'm new to this concept of land ownership, and like you said, if I was listening to this for the first time, my mind would be racing and going 1,000 miles a minute. I've learned through this process now, going on 3 years, of what it takes to acquire land and now start to work on the land. But if I were hearing this for the first time, what would be the biggest reasons and advantages to buying land, and what should be some of the first things that I do once I acquire the land?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing for me is a reason that kind of lives beyond us. But again, the idea that you could pass something on that's not just trauma, that's not just negativity, that's not just debt, but pass something on that is an add and a benefit. Like, I want my kids to be heirs to something beautiful. I want them to inherit something beautiful and not only be like, all right, I got to start from scratch. Like, no, you starting from what I built and what your grandfather built and what his grandfather built. And that's just a beautiful thing. And I went to Yale, which is a very white and wealthy school, and seeing the kinds of things that my peers knew. When I graduated, yeah, I'm inheriting this $1 billion business. When I graduated, yeah, my dad has his job set up for me, and being like, wow, I want to do something for my, I mean, it don't got to be $1 billion because I'm not here for that, but I want to pass something on to my kids that one day they're like, yeah, Brea did that. Your grandmother did that. And like, she did that because her great grandfather did that first, So I think that's the biggest thing. And that's why I think it's important to do with family. It can feel daunting to try and buy a bunch of land on your own, but literally, my in-laws, we just started the bank account and we're like, yo, everybody just put in a regular deposit and eventually we'll have enough for something and we could do it together. And we got enough skills where, okay, let's build this house and let's grow this food and like we can have a family compound on this thing. And so I'm just big on like, talk to your families, and it's easier to pool your resources together and do it and to make something happen in that way. Even if it's amongst friends, like, listen, let's buy some land and we could each put a business on it. We could put some tiny homes in the back, Airbnbs. We put something in the front. It's like, that's what it should be. Yeah. And so it starts with talking to your people and figuring out like who is aligned with me. Who's really about it? Who's willing to put up some money? And again, you don't got to have 6 figures today to put up, but put $100 here, $1,000 there, and it adds up over time. Into this.
Indeed.
And then say, all right, let's look for what works for us. What are we trying to do in this land? We're trying to hunt. We're trying to grow. We're trying to build businesses. Let's find a land that fits our needs. So I definitely would say just talking to your people, finding a group that wants what you want, and starting small and just watching it accumulate. And I love that y'all are doing that, and y'all are the blueprint for that in your community, because I think it's going to inspire a lot of people to be like, nah, if they could do it, I could do that for sure.
Everything that you just said is exactly the kind of conversation that we had right before we did this. We was talking about how do we do something for our family, our legacy, for our community, a safe space, a place to where it wasn't necessarily about monetizing and making $1 million, but how can we have a place to where we can have a cohesive unit of people that all share similar values and the desire to want to have something that we can live behind to our family, so that our children's children, many generations beyond, can say, man, when they having Thanksgiving dinner and they in front of the mantle and they looking at the picture, like, these are our ancestors. These 7 brothers made a decision for our family that changed the trajectory of how we feel. And I just, I was talking to an Uber driver earlier, man, and we were talking about technology and how, technology is a gift and a curse, because technology was created for the semblance of convenience. But also what ended up happening is that eventually it made us obsolete. And so I personally make the decision that I won't drive in a Waymo with an autonomous driver, because every time I ride in a Waymo, I'm taking a job away from an actual brother or sister that's like, hey, listen, I'm trying to supplement my income, my brother. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to supplement my income and take care of my family. And so I'm a firm believer that I think we've reached the place where we need to stop with technology and maybe even scale back, because what's happening
is back to the roots.
Yeah, because our children do not know anything about the land. All they know how to do is kind of occupy a screen. And we need to get to a place to where people remember what it was like, that they survived thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years without the need for convenience. And you said something early on, and I've said this many times on this platform and in any conversation or dialogue that I'm in, is that when we became landowners and I walked on the land and I had an opportunity to really embrace the land, I realized how much of a slave I had become, even though I'm no longer a slave. Because they made me have this semblance of freedom. You have the freedom of choice to go to any grocery store you want and buy anything that you want, and you can go and live in any neighborhood that you want. But what that did was that stripped me of my birthright, that birthright of being able to live and work off of the land and be able to cultivate no matter where I am in this planet. So everything that you've written and everything that you've talked about today, I hope that people really take heed to this. And I hope that people really realize that maybe I do need to scale it back a little bit. And it's not a bad thing to say that I am a little bit countrified, because I don't think that makes you country. I think what that does is that makes you independent, and that makes you free.
Yes.
And we need to get to a point to where we understand the true significance or the true meaning of liberation.
Yeah, facts. Nothing wrong with being a little country. And the last thing I'm just saying on that is AI and all this automated tech is very anti-Black. And so we have got to keep ourselves away from it. Especially because, I mean, it reminds me of iRobot. Like, I don't trust no kind of automated society anyway. So I'm really with that, getting back to the basics. I love this conversation. And I'm grateful y'all exist and that y'all can be this example and that I could be here with y'all talking about it.
And tell us where we can find you at as well.
Yes. Okay. So I am on Instagram, though maybe not for long because Meta pissing me off too, but I am currently on Instagram at Freckled Wild Black. My website is BreaBaker.com, though, if you're trying to connect with me off of social media. And I'm just anywhere that Black people and land are. So support organizations that are doing that. I'm on the board of an organization called Black Farmers Market, trying to make sure that Black consumers can get directly to Black farmers and buy directly from them. Also supporting the work of Black Farmers Fund, which tries and gets money in the hand of Black farmers who need the money to get their, to turn a profit and get their businesses off the ground. And then whereismyland.org, they are doing reparations campaigns. They had a successful one in California with Bruce's Beef. And I encourage everyone to literally, you could just go to the website, whereismyland.org, sign every petition they got, because we're trying to get Black people their land back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to be mindful of your time. It's like 22.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just want to say generational wealth used to be the planet, like you said in your book.
Yes.
Yeah. $1 billion is cool, but you know what I'm saying? That comes and goes. The land is here.
Yeah.
Real value right there.
I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much. Thank you.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate you coming on, sister. And
always. Please have me back. Like, I would love to talk more.
Yes.
We got to do this again.
We're going to hold you to that now that you said that. We definitely going to hold you
Absolutely.
to that.
Listen, True,
we have a ton more to
already. True was getting on me already. He was like, nah.
I just got to say, yo, we got you before Charlemagne.
Well, actually, okay, so here's the thing. I did the interview with Charlemagne 2 days ago.
Okay.
But it's not live. I think it goes live tomorrow. But
okay.
We gotta drop this episode today.
Right.
Drop it.
All right, but let me go off and get my baby. But I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I want to visit y'all when I come out to Arizona. I would love to visit the growth spot too.
Please.
Okay.
We'll plan it. We'll make it happen for sure.
Okay, bet. All right.
Peace.
Bye.
Peace.
Yo, man. Dope conversation, bro. Go ahead, True.
So just to piggyback off what DeLon was saying. Let me get rid of this stuff. Always keeps jumping on my screen. Like, and we talked about it as far as like when we first came to the land. So there's this one excerpt in the book, and it kind of reminds me of how I felt when I first stepped on our land. It says, when Black people were first kidnapped and brought to this land, the relationship was contentious. For some, the land was a shrieking baby, not of their own womb, yet forced into their bosom to be suckled 6 days a week. The burden of tending this land at the expense of themselves felt like torture. Though the land was not the abuser, like a crying baby, her needs superseded those of the Black people forced upon her. And I'm just like, I'm coming into a situation that I'm not, very, very well versed in, right? When it comes to hip hop, I'm killing everybody all day when it comes to just like talking points and history and all that. But as far as being on the land and knowing how to tend to it and till it and everything, you know what I'm saying? So that was just an excerpt that I found that resonated with me. You know what I'm saying? Nikki, I know you got through some of the book. Is there anything that stood out that like really like resonated with you that you want to speak on right now?
Yeah, I think the part that really just it grounded me was just the semblance between what she described in the book as her father, taking those trips down, down back to the land, and her not really understanding it as a child, but as she got older, she started to understand it. And it was very it resembled exactly what I was mentioning, which is that you know, when I would make those trips with my children, it reminded me almost of me being her father and her, you know, being the passenger, or my children being the passenger, being her, and those trips that we would take down to be able to, you know, to go down to not only on my you know, my mother's side, on the maternal side, which is the grandfather that raised me, but on my paternal side, you know, I saw them you know, also have, you know, in the back they had cows, they had pigs, and they had about 10 acres of land as well that was on the outskirts of the town that we lived in. And I remember them, you know, providing and feeding the entire community almost. You know, they slaughter a bull a year, and that bull would feed almost everybody in that little small community, which is a population of about 69 people, you know. But I mean, again, it's a small population, but it just it showed
Family.
what community was: family, community, legacy. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that land, that piece of land that I was talking about on my father's side, is still in the family to this day. Now we don't have the full 10, we have half of that, which is 5 acres of land, but it's still a plot of land that we still have that's in the family. So
Yeah.
that was one of the things that stood out to me as I was reading through it, and then also the pieces about the different riots, talking about Wilmington, right? Even, you know, there was some research I did a long time ago about Asheville, but just talking about Wilmington and how in depth she goes into talking about you know, the massacres and the things that we're not necessarily taught these things in school, but you can tell she did her research and was intentional about making sure that people really understand and understood what took place on this land.
For sure. And understanding the significance of, if it's, I mentioned it earlier, that they're always going to put us where they need us, not where we want it or not what's best for us. And so I think that the significance of the importance that she's placing on these stories, it just highlights the fact that land ownership has always been of the utmost importance to us. And when they're trying to usher us off of the land, they're trying to find ways to usurp the land from us, or take the land from us. That should let us know, like, hold on a second. Not only do we need to fight
Why?
harder, but we need to make sure that we're out here readily trying to acquire land. Like, my number one New Year's resolution this year was to acquire more land, over
Yeah,
100 acres here and abroad, because I understand that if they're fighting to push us off of the land and to take us off the land, take it from us, and then to keep us away from it, keep us congested into the city, there's got to be something to it. And so
absolutely.
just the fact that she's highlighting all of these historical examples of what they've done to us to push us off of the land and to take our land, only so that they can have it and they can be able to monetize it. I just think that it's something that everybody needs to really be cognizant and aware of, and make a concerted effort to get back to that place in time where land ownership, land cultivation, and development was our number one priority.
Right. And Nikki, I'm trying to follow your lead, man, because I got to get my girls up there. You know, my son, he's 22. You know, I talked to him about the land. I don't think it really like. I think he gets it, but it's like she said in the book. You can't love the land in proximity. You got to get your hands dirty. You got to get
Yeah.
your hands into it. You know what I'm saying? But a question I got for y'all, man, is like, because part of this whole thing with the growth spot and plot in progress, you know, we're documenting, you know, our journey and talking about the importance of land ownership. I also want, and Kylon talks about this sometimes too, like a lot of ratchetness and just nonsense is popular and it's cool with our babies and everything. How do we make what we are doing cool? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do we make it the end thing that everybody's going to want to do? Because that's the key, right? You know, there's so many distractions and whatnot that we're dealing with. How, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, whether it be, you know, entertainment, sports, all that. How do we make it where we get through to them that this is what you want to be doing?
Yeah. Well, you know what, man? I think that and this is gonna be this, just thinking it sounds crazy to me, and it's unfortunate that you have to make it this way.
Yeah,
But we gotta show that land ownership can be a party, that land ownership can be a cool. When they see us riding horses and having ATVs and toasting and celebrating and doing it in a space to where I can be free to be me and not be judged. And I don't have to be in a confined space that's owned by somebody and spending a whole bunch of money. I don't got to spend 10 times the amount of money on alcohol that it actually costs. And I can be doing all of these things on my own land and celebrating with my people in a way that I don't have to worry about fear or retribution, or I don't got to worry about the authorities coming. I don't got to worry about DUIs. Like, people need to see that it's cool it's fashionable, but it's a party. When they realize that, man, you over here giving your money to somebody else that don't even really care about you or support you, I think that people will begin to kind of wake up to this idea that, damn, you know what? Maybe land ownership, development, and cultivation actually is cool. Maybe it is cool to be country. When they see us out here doing our thing in our overalls, they're like, damn, you know what? Okay, maybe I do have it wrong, but we just need to make it a quote unquote fashionable. And it's difficult for me to even say that, because you shouldn't have to make something seem cool or fashionable. It should just be what it is. Like it's life affirming and it's sustainable. That in of itself should be the draw, but unfortunately we live in this party culture, this party lifestyle. So I think that when you see, you know, more hip camps and you see more of these, I'm starting to see more and more people having these gatherings on their land where they bringing out the big inflatable water slides and they out here having a party. I think that as more and more people see that and it becomes fashionable and cool, then what you can do, Colin talks about it all the time, is that medicine tastes bad. So how do you make the medicine taste good? Well, it's easy. If you just make it seem like people are having a blast on the outskirts, outside of the city, eventually people will come. And then once they're there, it's, aha, now I got you. Now let me teach you about all of the other benefits of land ownership, cultivation, and development.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. It's called proof of concept. You know, I think that's one of the things that we've got to continue the work, and that's why this work that this journey that we've ventured on is so important and vital, is because we are living proof. As the sister said, we're the template of what this looks like, and I think the more that we lean in and the more we tap in, it becomes viral. It becomes conducive to what we want to see. And I think the other thing that we've got to do. The other piece I'll say, and then I'll turn it back to you, but I think we've got to be intentional with making sure that we also include them in it. A lot of times, what we get so wrapped up in the doing piece, right, that we forget to include them. So I think that we've got to be very inclusive and be very intentional about being able to show them, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're building, this is what we accomplish. You know what I mean? I think we've got to be very intentional about that.
Real quick, Delon, look how the legacy camp had an effect on them young men.
Man, and that's what I was gonna say is
proof of concept.
These things are inherent in our DNA, even though we're many generations removed from being sharecroppers and quote unquote slaves and people who were forced to till on the land, and then going back before that to where we were actually living off of the land. It's in our DNA. So this was something that I always had this thought of. I wanted to kind of go back and learn how to live off of the land. And once we got the land and I was there, it was like the light bulb clicked. It's like, yes, this is my birthright. This is in my DNA. And now all of a sudden, it's just becoming natural and second nature to me. Everywhere I turn around, I'm trying to turn it into a garden. You know what I'm saying? And so once you get people out of the city and onto the land and let them have that supernatural experience, the that innateness is going to come out of them, and then all of a sudden now it'll spawn on its own.
Indeed. Well, shoot, brother, you got the updates?
Yeah, indeed, man. Let me share this. I'll share this really quick. I've got something that I think will be value added for us. But just we've got a lot of different things that are moving right now. One of the things that we're talking about is Let's Get Free, and that's coming in October. That's a workshop. Please stay tuned to thegrowspy.org for more information about that. But Let's Get Free, it's exactly what we've been talking about this entire episode, which is the ability of being able to acquire land, to become stewards of the land, as the sister talks about in her book, without having to go through these major institutions, the banking institutions, without credit. And so that's coming soon. Please stay tuned to us for that. The brother mentioned the Legacy Camp, man. We've got Legacy Camp, which is coming very, very fast upon us. Again, you can get more information on the website as well, thegrowspy.org. But the Legacy Camp is scheduled for May the 24th through 2026. I mean, this was a great opportunity for us to do exactly what we just finished talking about, which is to make that connection between the younger generation and exactly what we're building, which is we're building a legacy. And then we've got the go bag training as well. So that's another piece that it's a vital, important piece of what we're doing. Is we've got that's coming, and that's February the 23rd. So we do have an Eventbrite link as well. So the website will be updated with the information as well for that. You can find it on our social media platform. So the Growth Spot Squad on Instagram, fan base as well. We're on fan base. If you haven't already tuned in to us and check us out on fan base, we're there. The Growth Spot Squad on fan base as well. We're also on Facebook, the Growth Spot Legacy as well. You can find us there.
Keep in mind that even though all of these events are taking place here and where we're from, Arizona, stay tuned because we will make all of these different trainings available on an online platform so that you'll have an opportunity to tap in and learn all of the different things that we're teaching. He also didn't mention, but you got coming up in March as we have part 1 of a 3-part series, Get It Out of the Mud. Part 1 is Composting 101. So all of these things are coming. If you have the ability to tap in with us, you can fly in, or if you live here locally, you can attend these events in person. But we will make all of these different trainings available online as well once these events have taken place. So you don't have to worry about, it's like, man, I don't live in Arizona, man. How come I can't be a part of it? Stay tuned because we'll make all of these things available to you as well online.
Yeah, before we close, I just gotta say, man, I was surprised. She probably gonna be mad when I said I was surprised Brea got that them bars, man, because she kind of young. Too. That she's a head. She's a true head, yo. So yeah,
she's dope, man.
Shout out to Brea again, brother. You got the outro.
You know I got it, man. Come on. So, here at the Growth Spot, man, we are unified in action to build, protect, and expand a fruitful legacy of love, equity, growth, ancestry, cooperation, and yield. By inspiring and educating on the practices of agriculture, self-care, nutrition, environmental stewardship, and entrepreneurship, we aim to cultivate that vibrant community that's rooted in resilience and sustainability.
Come on, man. Preach, man.
Hold it real quick, and just to connect it to Rooted. She says here in the very beginning of the book, when we talk about land is part of who we are. It's a mixture of our blood, our past, our current, and our future. What better symbol of love, legacy, and loyalty is there? And on that note, say peace.
Peace. Peace.